Hi, I'm Rob Vanstone. I'm here with the Regina Leader Post hockey writer Greg Harder, and we're talking about someone who I think is the most hyped prospect in the history of the Regina Pats, who have only been around for more than 100 years, that being Connor Bedard. Greg's been following the Connor Bedard story right from the moment he was drafted by the Regina Pats, first overall in the 2020 Bantam draft, and even leading up to it, as soon as the Pats won the draft lottery, there was no argument or debate as to who they were going to pick. And so I'd like to pick Greg's brain on Connor Bedard, this most intriguing prospect, and just get some thoughts because he's done a number of stories on him. So, Greg, just off the top, what's your read on him? How exceptional a player, and he already carries that label as a designation. Might he turn out to be, or might he already be?
Well, that's really interesting, Rob. And you said something right off the top that kind of piqued my interest. You referred to him as maybe the most hyped prospect in Pat's history. And they go back 100 years. You probably saw them just about from the beginning, me more towards the middle, maybe. But I mean, when you stop and think about it, when you look at the circumstances, clearly you and I only go back so far, so it's hard to say, yeah, this is the most hyped prospect. But when you factor in the exceptional status, that being the first time that's happened, and just all the hype around this guy, and these days the social media age, and it just puts so much more of a spotlight on this kid. And I really would have to believe that he is the most hyped prospect in Pat's history. And it's really interesting because speaking to him. If you speak to other people about him, other coaches, other players, they say the same thing that I saw in terms of my impression of him, is that he's beyond 15 years old. He talks with a calmness and just very even keel. He doesn't seem like he's let any of this bother him. He understands what comes with the exceptional status and the attention and so on. But he just seems to take it all in stride. It's just like, I'm just playing hockey. And that's been the most interesting part. And we'll see how that plays out on the ice, because everything that I hear, and I've talked to a lot of different people about him that know him, from former coaches to teammates, and they all talk about how competitive he is on the ice, and the work ethic, the professionalism, and that's all in addition to the world-class skill. So to me, it's quite a perfect storm, and I'm really interested to see what he's got for us.
What are the elements of his skill set? The one thing everybody keeps talking about is the caliber of his shot. It may be the caliber of his shot may be several tiers above where he's playing right now, but there's obviously more to the repertoire. How would you describe it?
Well, considering I haven't seen him play yet either, that's tough to say, but I do know what people tell me. And I've had a couple different people tell me that he already has close to, if not an NHL caliber shot right now. And that's what a lot of people talk about. Now, when you go a little deeper, and you speak to people who've coached him and know him well, they talk about the all-around skill set. It doesn't sound like there are really a lot of weaknesses. That we're talking about a pretty complete player here, and I suppose that's the way it should be when you're talking about somebody with exceptional status. But still, when you kind of zoom back and you look at him, I think it's very telling that you're talking about a guy with a phenomenal all-around skill set, but people continually talk about his shot. So to me, that means that his shot is really that exceptional, because everything that I'm hearing is his game as a whole is really, truly exceptional.
Do you think this bubble and the whole format will help, at least at the start, to insulate him from some of the pressure, if indeed he does feel any or encounter any, and perhaps ease the transition into major junior hockey, and that it's not the 72 or 68 game grind, and there's not a gaggle of media encircling him after every game, and there's nobody in the stands to critique his play quite vocally. Perhaps is this as as much as you don't want there to be a format like this for a junior hockey season, you'd rather have a conventional one. But in a way, could this be beneficial to Connor Bedard, and that it might be just a bit of a more allow for there to be more of a seamless transition?
Well, that's really interesting, and I think time will tell, obviously. But I did ask him about that, and I asked him how it's been, in terms of doing all the media interviews and so on, because he was really a very popular guy, as you could imagine, with media requests leading into that first game. And I asked him how that's been, and he just kind of shrugs it all off, like, oh, it's fine, and it's just part of what's expected of him. And I don't think he's done more interviews, obviously, than a typical player his age, but I think he's gotten used to it somewhat. And he would certainly have more in a normal season. He'd have, after games, he'd have scrums and cameras around him, and the bright lights in his eyes, and you don't really know how they're going to handle it until they start getting in that kind of situation. So yeah, maybe he will be insulated from it a little bit, and he'll be able to just focus on hockey and not worry about what the media is saying or what the fans are thinking about his performance and so on. He can just play hockey, which is what he loves to do. But I really do get the sense from everything that I hear about this kid is that if there's anybody who's equipped to handle it, it's him, because, as I say, he just seems to really take it all in stride and just wants to be a hockey player.
I wonder, Greg, about when Sam Steele came in and he was picked second overall in the Bantam draft, and there was so much hype right off the start, and all of it proved to be justified given the way he performed as a Pat. Obviously, this takes the hype and everything to a higher level, but I mean, if Connor Bedard turns out to be as productive in junior hockey as Sam Steele was, that's a success story, and he does live up to the hype. Do you think, do you see any parallels between the two? Because they're both very elite, skilled players who come in with a buildup that is already considerable before they even lace up the skates for the Pats.
Yeah, it's the most obvious parallel in terms of being a recent player that we've seen in Regina, that being Sam Steele, as you said, second overall pick, came in with a ton of hype and ended up living up to it and was a late first round pick of the Anaheim Ducks. The difference here, in a sense, is the fact that this kid is hyped that much more. They're already talking, if you can ever talk about a 15-year-old kid being a potential first overall pick in the draft, well, they're already labeling him that. So, I mean, he takes it to another level. But that is a really comparison, and we saw Sam Steele a little bit as a 15-year-old when they brought him up late in the year, and you could tell that he was a special player, but he wasn't quite ready for that level yet. So it's going to be very interesting to see how ready Connor is, because despite all the talk about exceptional status and first overall Bantam pick and all the hype around this kid and that he's the next great Canadian hockey player, we still have to see it. He's still only 15, and this is a very difficult league to play in at 16, let alone 15. Now, clearly, Connor has an elite skill set and an all-around package. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that translates, because I don't know that there is a real parallel for us to compare him to.
I mean, they've had superstar players before, and there's been players who have come in with build up, but I mean, Steele is the closest one I can think of. Even Jordan Eberly, when he came in, a hometown kid and lots of skill, he was amazing 16-year-old season, but he wasn't a big first round draft choice, and there were concerns coming in about his certain aspects of his game. He didn't arrive with a ton of hype. Even Dale Durkach in 1981. Yeah, I mean, he was tremendous rookie player, but again, there wasn't the machine behind it with social media, et cetera, to hype that either. I just keep going through the list of players with whom I'm familiar, and that dates back to 1971 when I started going to Pats games, and there have been some amazing players since then, and we've seen Doug Wickenheiser score 89 goals and Jock Callender score 190 points and Dale Durkach do what he did, and Jordan Eberly and Mike Sillinger. But again, this is just it's a new case, and I wonder how the Pats are managing the expectations or managing the player. I know there was some caution, at least at the start, when Sam Steele came in and John Paddock talked about how they just want to protect him in a way. How are the Pats managing the expectations or the situation here?
Well, that's the thing, is that I would fully expect that they're going to be conscious of not putting too much on him, despite the fact that he seems like he can handle it quite well. They're still very cognizant of the fact that he's only 15. They need to put him in a position to succeed. So they don't want too much to be on him. I'm sure they would like to see him focus on hockey, but as you mentioned, no fans in the stands. He's going to be the media attention is going to be high, but it's going to be very different, and it's not going to be in his face. So, as you say, he is going to be somewhat insulated from this. So maybe in the end, you look back on this as being the perfect storm for him, and it's really the perfect opportunity for him to thrive. But from everything I hear about this kid, he's gonna get it done regardless.
Could you tell me a bit about his story, Greg? Like, how did he evolve into this player who, barely into high school is already talked about so much? What kind of things drive him, or what kind of things did he do or his family do to enable himself to get to the point where he's that landmark exceptional player in the Western Hockey League?
Well, that's the $1 million question, right? Everybody would love to know the magic formula for how you create a Connor Bedard. I think where it all starts, what I've been hearing from a lot of different people, is it starts with his parents. Great upbringing, very blue collar, humble family that has really kept him grounded through all this, because regardless of his personality, there's still a lot being put on him, and as I said, he's only 15. So, I mean, it starts with his parents, and it's obviously a deeply ingrained passion in him. I've heard stories about his shooting range that he has in his backyard, and he's being in North Vancouver. He'll be out there in the rain, and he'll have to be called in because he'll be shooting puck after puck after puck for hours. I mean, just the dedication to this kid is part of what takes him to another level. And it's clear that even though he's only 15, he understands what it takes to be a hockey player. He knows he wants to be a hockey player, and he has good people around him. He's getting advice from agents, but it all comes back down to his parents, I think, who he really leans on, and they really keep him grounded. And I think they've really helped feed his what's turned out to be a real natural passion and a natural ability.
And that's the thing. You want somebody who's a rink rat. You can go to all the hockey schools and take all the clinics or whatever you want, but if you don't have that coursing through your veins, a lot of that might be futile. But it does seem, like you said, that he just loves it, and that would seem to be a considerable part of the equation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm repeating myself here, but he just seems like he just wants to play hockey. When I talk to him about the experience of his first week of practice before the game, or prior to that being in quarantine and in the bubble and so on, and he just talks about how grateful he is. He mentioned that to me a number of times. He couldn't be more excited. He's just grateful that they were able to put this together, because it's going to, even though it's only 24 games, there may not be playoffs, he wants to play hockey. This is what he lives for, and this is what he wants to be his career for a long time. And he understands that a lot goes into that. And 24 games or not, he's just grateful to be here in Regina right now after all the talk, all the hype. It's been building up for a year. Everybody's excited to see him, but imagine how he feels. This kid has had the game that he loves taken away from him largely for the past year, except for some time in Sweden. And yeah, he's gratitude is the word that really stands out to me, because he's just thrilled to be here, and he can't wait to put on that jersey.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Greg. I'm sure it's going to be interesting to follow Connor Bedard. Who knows how long he's going to be here?
Might not be long.
But enjoy him while you can. At least there's a 24-game snapshot this season to start it off with. For Greg Harder, I'm Rob Vanstone. Thanks for joining us today, and take care.